let's jump in to the Thursday night football game. We have Minnesota at Philly. The Eagles favored by 7 at home. The total 48.5. Who do you like in a captain spot?
I'm going with Dallas Goedert here because I think there's a ton of viable options to use in the captain slot this slate, and Goddard just might be overlooked. He didn't catch a pass last week, but he saw 92% routes run rate, so he's going to have his games. The Vikings used more zone than anticipated in Week 1 under Brian Flores, so that could set up a better matchup for Goddard here. He typically thrives in zone, where AJ Brown and Devontae Smith tend to see less usage. So I think he's a sneaky play where if he does have a big game, which is always possible, and maybe gets 1 to 2 touchdowns here, that's great leverage against all the lineups that are going to have, AJ Brown or Devontae Smith in the captain slot. And Goddard's pretty cheap too, for this slate. He's cheaper than Vikings third string quarterback Jaron Hall, for reference. So I just think he's a good play here where, using the captain slot, and then you could still have a couple other studs in your flex and have pretty good leverage against the rest of the field. So you're going to have to go with Goddard here.
Yeah, for me, it's going to be Jalen Hurts. He's not even the most expensive player on the slate on DK, which I always love. I think that is a steal, so I'm going to go with him. Still, I think has that rushing upside. Played a tough defense against, that Patriots defense, especially with time to prepare. I think that was always going to be a tough matchup. This one, we saw guys running open for Baker Mayfield. We saw that Bucs offense not really have too much of a struggle. So I think this is going to be a much better matchup for Hurts. So love him in the captain spot. Who do you like for values?
For my value play, I'm going to go with KJ Osborne. He might be overlooked after just catching 3 balls for 31 yards. Not that we're expecting much more than that from Osborne most weeks, but he saw a healthy 94% routes run rate. Clearly the number 2 wide receiver for now, although I do think rookie Jordan Addison will leapfrog him at some point this season, but I doubt it's going to happen this week, especially with the short week. And Osborne, he ran 50% of his routes from the slot, which led the wide receiver group, which is usually the best matchup against the Eagles because you can avoid Darius Slay, James Bradbury. Although it does look like Bradbury, might miss this week. He's in the concussion protocol, I believe. So on the short week, it's unlikely he's going to play. So that does improve the matchup for all Vikings wide receivers. But Osborne's pretty cheap at $5K. So again, you could take him. Still take some other studs on this slate. So I think out of the value guys, Osborne's my favorite.
Yeah, it's still playing as that wide receiver too. Short week, so don't expect much to change there. For me, I'm going with Alexander Mattison in that mid-range. He's 7,600 on DK, played 73% of the snaps. And I think, he's a guy who we saw the Patriots backs against the Eagles catch 13 passes. So Madison caught a touchdown last week. I think he might be involved in the pass game again, and he's still getting most of the snaps. And there's a lot of shakiness going on in this mid-range. Swift is a guy who's priced up here, but we don't know. Gainwell got pretty much all the carries in week 1. So if he's healthy, then Swift is going to be overpriced. If not, then Swift is worth a look. But overall, I think Madison for me is the value here because that's the guy I think Minnesota's going to have to lean on. More than usual in a tough pass game matchup. You usually try to run on Philly, to keep them at bay. But yeah, Madison for me. What about dart throws?
Dart throws, it's tough on this slate because it's such a top-heavy slate. So I'm really scraping at the bottom of the barrel here. I'm going to go with Ty Chandler for the Vikings. To your point, I think Madison was way more involved as a pass catcher than I anticipated. I thought Chandler was going to have a bigger role on third down. He did see some third down work. He saw some 2-minute offense work. But I think with the short week, he could see an uptick in both scenarios and a potential, trailing game script. They are 7-point dogs here. So, he could sneak in a couple catches here, maybe a touchdown or something. But Chandler's my dart throw for the Vikings. And then on the Eagles side, got to go with Boston Scott. Rashad Penny was a healthy scratch last week, which was kind of surprising, kind of not. But the Eagles only had 3. They only went with 3 backs, which will help narrow down the touches at least going forward if they do stick with that. Gainwell's dealing with the rib injury, so if he plays or is limited, or they only have 3 active backs, Scott could be in play because the Eagles could win by 10 plus points here, and Scott's potentially going to be seeing fourth quarter garbage work. And Boston Scott's always a threat for a few vulture touchdowns every season. So on this slate again, it's pretty ugly for like these lower end guys, but
Yep.
Boston Scott could be sneaky here.
Yeah, especially if he's going to be that third back. Penny's like the Trey Sermon now of of last year. So,
Yeah.
We'll see. Gainwell's health is obviously something to monitor, but Boston Scott, yeah, he's active and highest paid guy in that backfield too. So not a bad dart throw. For me, I'll go with Quez Watkins for the Eagles. He outsnapped Olamide Zaccheaus 33-7. So I think that that was kind of a question mark coming into the year. Would those guys kind of split it equally? Would Watkins be the lone wide receiver 3? And it looks like in the past game, he 33-7 and really 52-7 because Watkins got all the run block snaps. Zaccheaus was only on the field for 7 passing downs. That's it. So I like him at 3K. And then Josh Oliver for the Vikings. He ran around on 31% of the dropbacks. That's something I talked about going into the season, that they're going to use that second tight end more even in the passing game. So he's pretty cheap for a guy that's going to be on the field about a third of the time. And got to mention the fullback, CJ Ham, 34% snap rate, 22% of the dropbacks, and he caught a couple passes as well. So, I think he is a live fullback. We finally have one for these DFS slates. But yeah, CJ, and he got 3 targets too. 3 targets.
Yeah.
So yeah, again, something I expected coming into the year. These backup tight ends and fullbacks more involved in this pass game. So Oliver caught 3 balls for 32 yards, and that was very encouraging. So yeah, I like the big guys for the Vikings, because you gotta. You're not going to – if Bradbury's out, it's a little different, but I don't think you want to just line up in straight drop back against that Philly pressure, especially with their corners on the outside. Slay looked great in week 1. So, yeah, going with the big guys for the dart throws.
Yeah, and I just got word Gainwell didn't practice today on Tuesday, so it's looking even dicier for him to suit up. So it looks like we will just have – it's too early to say, but it looks like we will have, just Scott, Swift, and Penny available.
Yeah, and Penny, I would throw him in that dart throw as well.
Oh because,
yeah, he could just be that kind of direct backup to one of those guys, to where the other 2 guys' roles might not change. You might just see Penny get all the carries this week. So I wouldn't put it past the Eagles. I knew it was going to be a headache, but I did like Gainwell going into last week. I feel like he was the undervalued guy, but this week, yeah, it's not going to be him. So got to pay attention to who's active. But yeah, I think Penny would be in that dart throw conversation.